Hello, welcome. Today in this talk, I am with Cayelin Castell, who is a new friend and a wonderful human, and an almost birthday twin-ish person. And today, Cayelin and I are going to be talking about Venus and Mars, and specifically, Caylin's title is Beyond the Gender Spectrum, A New Look at Mars and Venus. But before we start, I wanted to read your bio to give people a little bit of background on you. So Cayelin Castell is the co-founder of Venus Alchemy, My Star Alchemy, and the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. In addition to writing monthly celestial timings for over 25 years, she enjoys sharing these mysteries through personal readings and teaching both online and in-person events, changing lives and perspectives from the visionary understanding that we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. I just want to say, we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us is so key to everything I'm going to be talking about, because we're just learning so many new things now. And so we're being informed and we're also informing them. It's very
beautiful. And I totally agree. Yes. So with going beyond the gender spectrum with Mars and Venus, where would you like to start?
Well, okay, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to kind of look at this from the idea that, that I guess one of the things I want to say is that I got involved in a priestess process back in 1995. And someone just said they were doing a priestess thing. And I'm like, priestess? I want to do that. And so I got the opportunity to do that. And one of the things we worked on was wholeness. How are we experiencing wholeness within ourselves? And part of that is to have a connection to our inner masculine as well as whatever our feminine identity is. So a lot of what I'm going to share is from that perspective, like how do we come into this place of greater wholeness? And I remember as a kid, I think it was, they would say, oh, women have have 60% feminine and men have 40% masculine, and then vice versa for men. And that we lead with a certain archetype. But I think we're even going beyond that now. Just my feeling about that, understanding of that. Yeah. And so this is designed to help us get an understanding of what those energies are, what we're exploring, what we're intending to explore around those energies within us. And it comes from the perspective of shamanic astrology and the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. So I just thought I'd give, for people who don't know, this is a type of astrology that is more experiential. It's about having a direct connection to the night sky. You can see the sky here. And this is the Great Rift or Galactic Center. And this is how we know we're at the turning of a 26,000-year cycle, a conversation for another time, perhaps. But it's really fun and exciting to be tuned into the mysteries of what's going on in the sky, and not just looking at charts. So this goes way beyond that. Something else I really love about this approach is the cycles of initiation on the shamanic timeline. And part of what we're going to look at is the synodic cycles of Venus and Mars. We'll do that at the very end to get a sense of ages that we go through specific cycles around Venus and Mars based on how old we are. And then this is not sun sign astrology. One of the things that happened in the 1800s, I think it was around the mid 1800s, was I started writing articles in the newspaper based on the sun sign. And the reason is because you can know your sun sign within a day every month. It's changing signs once each month or every 30 days or so. And so most people know their sun sign. So that's why they did that. And it tended to elevate the sun above everything else. And now people are like, they make assumptions about you based on your sun sign. And I've had people say, oh, I can always guess somebody's sun sign. And then they try to guess mine and they never get it. So I'm like, yeah, I am way more than my sun sign. So this is looking at the sun as the energy that you use to accomplish why you're here. And so it does have an influence and an effect, and it's very important, but it's not the be all end all importance that a lot of people give it. It's also, this is a way of having an understanding of an archetypal and mythical basis for understanding our life's purpose, our soul's intent. When we understand the archetypal energies, then that are, all our planets and our rising sign and everything on our chart is connected to, then, and we are aligning ourselves with that, magic happens. I just love watching that happen for people in so many amazing ways. And then, of course, we look at Venus as feminine. We're going to look beyond what the traditional views of Venus are. Mars is masculine, again, looking beyond the traditional views of that. Nothing is, from the shamanic astrology perspective, good or bad. It's all about intent. It's not right or wrong. This is exalted. This is in detriment. This is the best place for the Venus or Mars to be, or the moon, or something else. All of it works. All of it has intent. Nothing is better or worse. So also the other thing I love about this approach is recognizing and integrating shadow. So all the signs, and we're going to look at this. I'm going to share a little bit about the essence of each of the signs and the shadow as well. So when we understand these things, it can be really helpful. So any questions about any of that so far?
No, I'm excited. The only thing I would add is that in the beginning, when you mentioned the 60-40 split of men versus women, I would say at this point in time, I feel like my personal feeling is that we are all of it.
Yes.
And I personally love the idea of just sitting with me as Mars, me as Venus, completely, all of it, all at the same time. And
perfect. I love that you said that, because I think that is where then we're sitting with wholeness. We've got it all integrated. It's all a part of us, and it's not either or, it's really both and more. One of my favorite sayings.
I feel like Mars and Venus are both in the sky the moment you're born, right? Like they're equally present. They're equally there.
Right.
Yeah.
But our culture has conditioned us in certain ways, and we're gonna look at that. So here's Venus going beyond the traditional views. In shamanic astrology, we go way beyond the traditional views that pretty much limit her expression to being about relationships. I just find myself gritting my teeth when people just say, oh, Venus is all about relationships. I'm like, no, not always. There are aspects of Venus. There are ways that Venus can show up as she does not care about relationships, not interested. It's about aesthetics and personal preference and values and finances and material possessions. And so one of the things that we look at is a Venus signature. There's also a Mars signature that includes the sign that Venus is in, but it also includes the sign of the sun and the moon, and what outer planet aspects we might have, what phase Venus is in. Is it morning star, evening star, underworld, metamorphic underworld? And so if, that will add a whole other dimension of our understanding of what Venus is all about and why she's here. And then the meta goddess that's on the world stage at any given time, when we look at the fact that the Venus cycle is 19 months. And so for 19 months, there's a specific expression of the divine feminine being integrated into the collective psyche of humanity for that time period. And we use the story of Inanna to really understand how to work with that. So, but also Venus can have a very strong yang expression. So say if Venus is in Aries, I happen to have Venus in Aries. I was a tomboy growing up, and I was like, I don't want to be a girl. I want to be a guy. They have more fun. So we could describe, if we're just looking at the Venus and Aries piece, the wild warrior woman who's committed to restoring cosmic order and justice. And so I know that for me, I could stand for everybody else, but never for myself. partly because I have a lot of Piscean influence. I have a Pisces sun. So that makes it more difficult. It's like, oh, I will defend you, but I won't defend myself. So these are the things that help us to really understand what the intent is around it. And one of the things I've been learning in this last year is how to stand up for myself finally. And I just turned 66. So, it's taken a while. Anyway, so also Mars goes beyond the traditional views that has limited his expression to being about action, desire, energy, passion, conquering, domination, war, aggression, assertion. Mars is so much more than that. And also Mars has a signature similar to Venus. And basically we can look at the same things, that when you put it all together, then you have a deeper understanding of the intent of Mars. So we want that, and we want to have that understanding of both Venus and Mars, and recognize that they are both here as part of what we're learning about in the current life. It doesn't say this is how you are. It's not making you be a certain way. But the intent is to learn about these archetypal energies, find expression for them, and everybody's going to have their own unique expression. And then that's when we feel most fulfilled and happy and, centered and whole within ourselves. So Mars, like Venus, can have a very yin or feminine expression. So if Mars is, say, in Pisces or Cancer, then it's expressing as highly sensitive, caring, kind, compassionate, very different from the domination, war, conquering, like, let me just control you, dominate you kind of energy that we think about around Mars. So this is just to give us a sense of that. It's not that, these energies are not what we necessarily have thought them to be. So what I thought I would do here is, and were there any questions about that? Let me just slow down a little bit. I might have Venus in Aries and go fast.
I do too, so don't worry about it.
Okay, good. So what we've generalized in our current culture, and there is sort of a more healthy expression of the masculine, and there's a distorted or wounded session of the masculine. And so this is so we could say the healthy expression is knows how to create a loving, safe, protective space. And that's a great expression of Mars, is organized, focused, and solution oriented, has the confidence to figure out what to do and when to do it. So is, able to take inspired action when needed, when it's healthy, and then knows when to be assertive and when to be supportive. So then there's the distorted or wounded expression of the masculine, dominates, controls, conquers others, often motivated by fear and ego, because they're proving to themselves they're superior to others, or that they can be in that more dominant expression, because that's how our culture has looked at Mars. But that isn't necessarily the essence of those energies. That's more the shadow side. They're unhealthy competition, because competition isn't necessarily bad, but there's that unhealthy competition. I have to win at any cost. And if I hurt you in the process, oh, well, it's too bad. So that's kind of a distorted expression. And then overconfident, based in a fear of incompetence, asserting their power and control over others to prove otherwise. And so that fear of being incompetent, then they will try to overcompensate for that. And then they believe they're right, and that justifies their actions. And I think about this, and if we think about the, I'm just going to say some religions, I'm not going to call anybody out specifically, but there have been genocide that has been perpetrated on people because they were heretics. And they justified taking this action of maiming, killing, doing horrible things to people. And that's a distorted masculine expression. And then also tends to avoid emotions, suppress them, and dismisses vulnerability as a sign of weakness. You can't be vulnerable if you're in the current culture of the Mars expression. Now, this is changing now. I think we're starting to realize in some places that's realized more than in others. I think there's still places in this world that men especially are going to encounter these energies. So, if you just want to look at a one-word summary for each of these, healthy Mars is logical, confident, decisive action, strong, assertive, achieving, and a protector. If you're looking at the distorted masculine part of this, oops, not what I meant to do. How did that happen? Then it's aggressive, blunt, cruel, punishing, domineering, controlling, and insensitive. So that's just a way to kind of sum up everything we just talked about. Now, Venus, same thing. There's a healthy expression and there's a distorted expression of the feminine. So if she's healthy, this energy trusts intuition and body wisdom, feels aligned with choices from the inside out. It's not like looking out here for the answers, but knows and feels that intuitive sense of, what's right for me. Healthy lifestyle choices, expresses feelings and emotions in healthy ways, not like suppressing them until they come out in a rage or something like that's not healthy. Spending time in nature, caring about the earth and life, and expressing vulnerability as a strength. So the healthy feminine thinks of vulnerability as a strength, not as a weakness. And it's a tool for connecting with the truth of what is best for self, whatever that might be for yourself and others. And then it's nurturing, caring, and supportive in ways that encourage personal growth for all concerned. I think this is something we all, whether we're men or women or something in between, gender, whatever, I don't know, that this is something we all ideally are developing within ourselves. And then there's that distorted or wounded expression that's looking outside for answers, direction, and solutions. There's questions, questioning our value and our worth, and lack of self-love, often feeling lost, confused, anxious, overwhelmed, and unable to make plans or decisions. And sometimes the way I've experienced that is, especially when I've been in relationships, I'm always worried about what the other person wants. Like, if what I'm doing, is that going to align with what they want? So I'm over that. I'm not in a relationship where I have to do that anymore. In fact, my husband often says to me, "You don't have to worry about me. I can take care of myself." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And when we first got together, he had to say that a lot. But now he says it occasionally, and I'm like, "Oh, I was unconsciously doing that again." So anyway, lacking an ability to self-nurture or over-giving, hoping to find love and acceptance outside of oneself. So we have to give it to ourselves first, ultimately. Has the disease to please at the expense of their own well-being, and expresses an empowerment victim, disempowered victim, believing that they will never be good enough. And that is something that has been, it's like women definitely encounter this. You've got to have children, you've got to be, you've got to show up in a certain way, you've got to have a man, you've got to, whatever those things have been that we're moving away from now, but there's still some of that conditioning in the culture. So the healthy feminine summary is that she's intuitive, collaborative, caring, kind, generous, creative, nurturing, experiential, expressive, receptive. Distorted feminine, overly emotional, cries too much, overly sensitive, irrational, dependent, codependent, submissive, indecisive, and too talkative, like just doesn't know when to stop talking.
I just want to interrupt. I think that you're intending to show us the other slides, and the one I'm seeing is just your first one.
It's my first one. I've been moving them. I don't know why it's not moving on your screen. That's weird. All right, so apparently we're having a little Mercury grade hiccup and the slides weren't shifting. They were on my screen, but not on Martha's. So this is, I'm going to show you the slides that we've been talking about, and you can, the free gift I'm offering everybody will have these slides, so you can go back and look at them, the ones that we missed. So the Venus slides, the healthy and distorted masculine, the healthy and distorted feminine. And then here's where we were going to next.
Perfect. All
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. So you're seeing the social conditioning slide, correct?
Yes.
Just double checking. Yeah. So how we perceive the masculine and feminine expression in specific ways has been very conditioned to a specific thing. And one of the things I'm hoping is that this can help people to see that those things Women can have these qualities and men can have these qualities regardless of gender. So there's a woman named Jessica Warren, who's a wellness writer, and she said, we all show up somewhere on the feminine to masculine spectrum in our relationship to life. You could have a baseline preference to be very masculine or feminine, and it doesn't matter what physical body you're in. Or you might sit more towards the middle. And this is something that we're going to look at a little bit too, in terms of how the astrological signs, some sit more towards the middle, some sit more towards the extremes. So although we culturally think of women as more feminine and men as more masculine, this is not always the case. There are masculine and feminine dominant people of every gender and orientation. That is just brilliant. Like, I was like, I couldn't say it better myself. So I quoted her. And she created this sort of like almost like a spectrum in a way of the mature masculine and feminine and the immature masculine and feminine. And some of these things we've already talked about, and there might be a few new words here. And again, if people want to look at this more fully, they can get the slides on my free offer page. And you don't have to sign up, give me your email to get it. I'm just like, if you want to give me your email, fine. If you don't, that's all good too. So one of the things as I was tuning into this, I'm like, okay, we're evolving our understanding and our guidelines around this. I mean, I think there's been rules in the past, like there's certain ways that we're supposed to show up. So no matter what your gender identity is, we all have an intended masculine and feminine expression, both equally important. And we are learning to lead with that gender identity being the lead archetype. So whether being feminine and masculine, it's not either or, again, both and more. So, however, if a woman identifies as a man, then he is learning about and exploring the masculine identity through his natal Mars. And if a man identifies as a woman, then she is learning about and exploring her feminine identity through her natal Venus.
You mean if somebody is born identified as one gender, but they actually
are a different gender.
They are a different gender, then got it. Okay.
Yeah. So like we tend to look at like, you know, since I identify as a woman, I'm born as a woman, I identify as woman. So Venus is the lead archetype for my feminine expression. But if I was a man becoming a woman, then Venus would become the lead archetype for that feminine expression that they're moving towards. I hope that makes sense.
Yes.
I know it gets confusing. I get confused because I've had a certain life experience that isn't the same as everybody else's, but this is a way to hopefully help people to, especially people who have a different gender identity than what they were born into, to figure out, how to understand what that intent is for them. So if a person is gender fluid, then perhaps Mars and Venus take turns being the lead archetype during specific synodic return cycles. And actually, this would be true probably even if you're not gender fluid, even if you're identified as more than the other. I think that's true as well. And also if there are specific outer planet transits over Venus and Mars. So currently I have Pluto square my Venus, and so it's put Venus on the front lines of everything for me right now. Yeah. But I had some years ago, I had Venus square Pluto square my Mars, and then it was the masculine energy, what I was dealing with within and also externally that was showing up for me. So women who identify as feminine and men who identify as masculine, they're exploring Venus. So a woman who's identifying as a woman is exploring Venus. I've already kind of said this, and then the man is exploring his Mars as the leading archetype for the masculine identity. And yet we don't want to leave out the other part of it. As we were saying, it's probably more like 50-50. And if we're here to experience greater wholeness, we want to honor them both as energies. And then how do they talk to each other? That's a topic for another time. Yeah. So here we are with, we're going to look at this from the basis of the elements. So Fire and air signs are masculine energy. Now, I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about specifically things that we think of as masculine, especially in our current culture. This could change, I guess, over time. I don't know, but this is what we have. So fire being about action, and air being about the mind and thinking, and that kind of thing. So those are more masculine kinds of energies. Water and earth are feminine, water being about the feeling realm and the feminine being about the physical realm. And so those are yin energies, and masculine, air and fire, are more yang energies. And so what we're going to look at now is how they might be on the spectrum. So if we think of yin, feminine, earth and water, yang, masculine, fire and air, we have a maximum yin and a maximum yang expression. And so, so I put the archetypal signs within where I feel they fall along that spectrum. So for example, Pisces and Cancer being maximum yin energy. They're all about being compassionate and, how do I take care of you? How can I give to you? How can, all the things that we associate with the quote unquote feminine energy. And then Taurus and Virgo is a little bit more towards the middle of that, and Scorpio, Capricorn really towards the middle, sitting kind of more in the middle. And that's because, interestingly, Scorpio and Capricorn have been somewhat co-opted by the patriarchal culture, and has been seen as having more masculine qualities associated with willpower and control. And so they're less what the culture defines as feminine. And then Aries and Leo are maximum yang energy, right? Like, I'm going to go fight for, I'm going to lead, I'm going to, I'm going to conquer, I'm going to do all those things that we think of as masculine energy. Whereas Sagittarius and Aquarius are more towards the middle of that. And because they're more about consciousness and expanding consciousness. And it's like, it's not about me having control over you so much as it is that I just want to do my own thing, and I want to go off into the, into the realms of consciousness and some higher place and whatever. Interestingly, Libra and Gemini sit more towards the middle. And we can say this because the planet Venus is associated with relationships. It's because it's been connected to Libra, and Libra is all about relationships, though it is an air sign, so it is more yang than feminine. And I always have found that interesting. It's like, I don't know, I don't really get that so much. I think there's something else that needs to go with Libra. I don't know what it would be. But Gemini, also because it's a shapeshifter. So I've seen people who, when I first started learning about this years ago, I'd see a lot of people who were, say, feminine, but they were lesbian, or they were masculine, but they were gay, more gender fluid, more of a shapeshifter, not what everybody expects you to be. So it sits more towards the middle of the spectrum. So I hope this kind of gives people a sense that, we see certain signs as being masculine and feminine, but there's somewhere along the spectrum of masculine and feminine, maybe more yang, that, like Aries, Leo, or more yin, like Pisces, Cancer. And so that kind of gives us a sense of how to appreciate these archetypal energies. And every single one of them can express through all the various gender identities. We'll look at that a little bit more as we go along. But anyway, so my feeling is that with new awareness and intentional inquiry, we can deepen our understanding of how this may be manifesting now, because a lot of the ways that people look at it is from how it was manifesting then. And there were certain cultural conditioning things that caused it to be that way, and everything's growing and evolving. So this is our opportunity to see how to grow and evolve that. So this is the spectrum. And then how are we going beyond the spectrum? Oh, I forgot I put these in fly in kind of thing, whatever. Anyway, so we're going to start with the fire signs. And we could say all the fire signs have optimism, they're outgoing, they're fun, they're charismatic, they're enthusiastic. and freedom oriented. They love to have their freedom sense. Leo is learning how to shine like the sun in radiant, healthy self-love while inspiring others to do the same. And of course, this is very limited, but just to kind of give you a sense or a taste of these energies, because we could spend days just talking about each one of these, at least hours. Anyway, and then the shadow side of Leo is egotistical, narcissistic, inadequate, entitled, overly focused on an external image. So of all of the signs have their essence and their shadow side, and this can be expressed through, women can express it, men can express it, transgender men and women can express it, gay and lesbian people can express this. I mean, it's like, it's not limited to whatever the gender is that we think about. So Aries is here learning how to be courageously a protector and how to fully commit to a noble cause or a worthy mission, taking actions that also restore or uphold the cosmic order. And then shadow is being mercenary, self-absorbed, careless, fixated on a black and white perspective. This is right, this is wrong. and we'll defend that to the death. Can be one of the ways that Aries can do that. I might have kind of been more on that spectrum at some times in my life where I'm like, this is right, and that is so wrong. Yeah. I've been learning to be more in a place of, well, maybe that's right for you, but it's not right for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
So, so
my 19-year-old self was much more polarized in the way that I experienced everything.
Yes. Yeah. And this is, it's an evolution. We're growing, we're evolving, right? This is So anyway, Sagittarius is learning to embrace the fire of spiritual adventure, seeking ever expanding experiences of consciousness and truth. The shadow side, fundamentalism. I remember when the Taliban started taking over when Pluto was in Sagittarius back in the mid-90s, and I was like, their fundamentalism, like, our way of doing this is right and you need to follow it. Ugh. Anyway, so we've seen a lot of that in all the different religious perspectives that get more polarized to one, I'm right and you're wrong kind of thing. Restless or bored, light polarized, and doing spiritual bypass. So they're not dealing with their shadow, they're just going right to the love and light, and that can be challenging. So, so that's the fire signs. Now we're going to look at the water signs and their how they're intuitive, deep feeling, soul connected, sensitive, and compassionate. Now the reason I separated compassionate, because Scorpio tends to be just more passionate. It doesn't really have compassion for others necessarily. So that's one of the challenges that we can experience around Scorpio, even though it is a water sign. It's more interested in its own self and its own experience. Pisces is learning self-service through compassion and kindness as a transpersonal giver and a visionary dreamer. The shadow side is the martyr, the addicted giver, hoping to get something in return. Like, if I give you enough, maybe you'll give me what I want, even though I don't know what I want because I don't have a self. Being a victim, having a lack of personal boundaries and sense of self is the shadow of that. So Cancer is learning to nurture and care for those around them, creating a safe space for their inner circle. This might express as the loving, responsible parent, counselor, or teacher, and there's other ways, but that's just to kind of give you a sense of that. And the shadow side, giving to get, not unlike Pisces, over giving to exhaustion, that kind of thing, controlling, like I want it to be, okay, I'm giving to you and I'm caring about you and I'm nurturing you, and yet you should be doing something for me and back in return, or you should do what I say because I've given you so much. And then they can also be a victim. Scorpio is learning how to access passionate life force energy and a sense of self-manifesting desires without attachment to income. So a sense of self-manifesting desires without an attachment to outcome. And the shadow side of Scorpio includes having an attachment to outcome and trying to control it, manipulate it, and have it be their way. Also being afraid of their own power or their fear of being persecuted. So they don't necessarily step into the power, but then they're angry and then that comes out sideways. And they can be vindictive, punishing, revenge oriented. And it's so interesting. I think because I have a Scorpio rising and a lot of Pluto on my chart. And I feel like because I have a Pisces sun, there's times if I'm going to be revengeful, it's really sneaky and probably the person will never even know it. Back in my day, back when I was younger, like in my 20s and 30s. So I have definitely lived that out and I don't feel like I need to do that anymore. So that's good. Anything comes up for you, Martha?
I mean, lots of reflections of, I'm just thinking of my own life and people I know and that kind of thing. But in general, I'm just loving hearing what you're saying. So
okay, great. Awesome. So the air signs, why is that? Why am I not getting, okay, I don't know why that's coming in last. I don't know what I did. I was doing this in a Mercury retrograde, so my all-purpose excuse. And of course, Mercury's retrograde in Gemini, it's about to go into Taurus. Anyway, so the air signs tend to be quick, brilliant mind. They love being on the cutting edge of new ideas, expansive, innovative, and thinking outside the box. So Gemini is learning how to not to take themselves so seriously, to find the humor, to have fun, be a shapeshifter, be a messenger, be a storyteller, be a trickster magician, not follow the cultural norms that say this is how you should do it or what you should do. But the shadow side can be passive aggressive, not valuing emotions, changing too quickly so that maybe they become scattered and they can't follow through on something. They might have inappropriate humor. So, they think they're saying something funny and it really is hurtful. So that's something to be aware of. And then fear of being tied down or their freedom being limited in some way. So Libra is learning how to be a peacemaker, a diplomat, a negotiator, to know themselves through relationships. So this is why Venus has been identified with relationships, because they identify Libra with Venus, which I find just fascinating. Anyway, and to balance personal truth with consensus reality. So it's not like my truth is the only truth, but it's not like consensus reality is the only truth either. I can have a truth that might be different from that, but respect the fact that there could be a different truth out there that people have a consensus around. The shadow, no sense of personal identity because they identify themselves through the relationships, being codependent, idealizing relationships, being indecisive, just a few of the things that can be the shadow of Libra. Aquarius is learning how to be a visionary change agent on the cutting edge of new perspectives and expanding consciousness, all for the purpose of evolution. Not just for the purpose of the sake of change for the sake of change, but that it has an evolutionary motivation behind it. And the shadow is that they deny there is a shadow. Oh, what shadow? There's no shadow. Also can get easily bored. They can quit too soon. My stepfather was a triple Aquarius, and it's like as soon as he got bored with something, he was done. Like it could have been a brilliant project and he wouldn't see it through because he was bored. I was like, oh my God. I just witnessed that so many times. Light polarized, too detached or checked out. So air, yeah, these are the air signs and how they might manifest.
Cool. I had a couple of questions. One is, with Libra, would you add in there, I mean, it's probably assumed under what you said, but like a people pleaser under the shadow?
Yeah. And, absolutely.
With Aquarius, my Mars is in Aquarius, and it's a longer story, but when I did like a deep dive into myself about a year ago to find my own feminine and find my own masculine, I have my Venus in Aries in my 8th house, right, and my Mars in Aquarius in my 6th house. And again, long story, but when I went into myself, I was expecting to find a masculine that had a lot of shadow side, because we've grown up surrounded, we all have grown up surrounded by a lot of shadowy masculine energies, right? But what I actually found inside myself, my masculine is a very clean, clear, caring, kind of magical, like grounded, calm energy with pretty much no shadow. And it's my feminine that is huge and powerful and is carrying a ton of shadow. So now that you're saying a shadow side of Aquarius can be denying a shadow, that's just interesting to me.
Yes. Well, and it may be that yours really is clean and clear.
Yeah.
I mean,
it does feel that way.
Yeah. It's not to say that we can't be that, but what often happens is it's like, I'm only looking at the light. I'm only looking forward. I'm never looking back. There are people who it's like, there's only light, there's no dark.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I mean, the thing is there's both. And when we deny one, then we're actually more steeped in it than we even realize.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's great that you brought that up, because I feel like a lot of people say we're in the age of Aquarius. It's way bigger than the age of Aquarius. This is something that can get me really going, because it's the age of Aquarius is like a month cycle, or 2,160 years. But the new year cycle, 26,000 year cycle, way bigger than just a month, so we're resetting everything. But it's like, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and all about looking at the light, and, the spiritual people and so on, who definitely tend to be light polarized and not looking at the dark side of things, and not willing to, but we need to, in order to transmute it and transform it so we can move into the new energy. Otherwise, we're just going to drag that with us.
Yeah.
whether we recognize it or not.
Actually, if people haven't watched it yet, on day 2 of the symposium, which is the day before your day, Heather Ensworth did a talk on her perspective on the age of Aquarius and the precessional cycles, like that 26,000 year cycle you're talking about. And she talks about how we are bringing into this, as we're entering the age of Aquarius, we're bringing the shadow side of the age of Aries and the age of Pisces. What she calls the sub age of Virgo at the end of the age of Pisces. So it's like the shadow sides of those are still here.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is it's kind of like, you could say, if you're focused on the spring equinox, those ages, and whatever we focus our attention on will become true. So if we're focused on the age of Aquarius, or the age of Pisces, or the age of Aries, that becomes what manifests in our outer reality. If we're looking at the larger shift of an entire galactic year, then we're looking at the fact that the sun is on the galactic cross at the December solstice, near galactic center. The Mayans referred to that as Hunab Ku, and that is the place where all movement and measure, everything is coming into new birthing place. And the galactic center is a black hole. It's dark. So it's like, we'll have to look at the shadow of everything. Wow. Not just Aquarius, not just Pisces, not just Aries, not just Taurus. There was an age of Taurus before Aries, and all of that. So it's like every single archetypal energy, it's like our opportunity to really address those shadow pieces, integrate them, transmute them, transform them, so that they're not driving our choices. And we just had that Scorpio total lunar eclipse, and when we have a total lunar eclipse, the shadow of the earth is on the face of the moon, so we're looking at our own shadow. And it's Scorpio, which is all about taking that deep dive into the shadow. So our opportunity, even now as we're recording this, as we're still in that energy, is that we can really look at the shadow, which is not just our negative side, or the, you know, the things we tend to look at as negative, but also the fact that we're magnificent beings that are super powerful. And we don't even remember, most of us don't remember that we are co-creators with its reality. We're co-creating all the time. We just aren't aware.
Yeah.
And so the more we can become aware of that and embrace that and transmute and transform that, then it's not choosing where we go, the fear, the dark side of it all, whatever that might be. It is that we get to choose where we go because we're willing to face our shadow. I love that. Yeah. Okay. So now the earth signs, and they tend to be stable, industrious, productive, realistic, dependable, practical, in ways that get the best results, and they'll do it in different ways. So Capricorn is here to learn the most wise and effective ways to serve the present and future generations, meeting and exceeding basic needs in balance with the earth. And the shadow side of Capricorn is they think they're better than anyone else. They get stuck in old ways of doing things. They take themselves too seriously, or they're scapegoated and wind up carrying others' burdens, like they get so much projected onto them. And so or they're just like, they have to be in control. That's another part of that. Like I know, because I'm the wise one. I know what it needs to be done, and it needs to be done my way. And that can be challenging as well. Then Taurus is learning to enjoy and savor the present moment, the ecstasy of life force energy, and the artistic beauty of life, which is very different than the ways Taurus is often perceived. But this is really what Taurus is here to learn about. The shadow side is the inability to receive the gifts of life. Believing pleasure is a sin. We are taught it's more blessed to give than receive, when originally the statement was, it's more blessed to give than to take something that's not yours. That was the original translation, and then it got shortened to it's more blessed to give than receive, which really is a whole different meaning. And then they try to live up to a cultural definition of beauty rather than what feels beautiful to them, and an attitude of entitlement rather than healthy receiving with gratitude. So that might be some of where some of the perspectives of Taurus comes in, is more around the shadow expression of it. And then Virgo is learning to connect with the structural patterning of reality for the purpose of serving the sacred expression of life, and how to restore balance when the pattern of life becomes imbalanced. And it's like the priestess and priest who do the sacred ceremonies at the seasons, at the new moons and the full moons, to help keep things in that sacred balance with the greater reality. And then the shadow side is, of course, most people will recognize this, expressing as judgmental, nitpicky, critical, over focused on details, or they might have trouble focusing if it's like a different aspect of the shadowy part of that, an inability to engage personally because they don't necessarily know that what they're saying hurts people's feelings. They can be overly controlling about the space around them. So that's the shadow of that. So anything about any of this that comes up for you?
No, I'm just reflecting that I have a Virgo moon and Virgo rising. You know.
I know, I love that because my twins have that. So we're going to look at that now as we go through this, because I just thought I'd give some examples. My oldest son has Mars in Libra, so that's like a minimum yang expression. Of course, it's also conjunct Saturn, which is driven and also not good enough, or whatever he's having to work out with that. But he's got Venus in Gemini, which is a minimum minimum yang expression also. And then his Cancer sun is maximum yin. So it turns out he's also Gemini rising, Mercury in Gemini. He's got a lot of Gemini. So it turns out he is super smart. He's kind, he's generous, he loves to teach, and he's highly sensitive. So when he was growing up, his fourth grade teacher called me in to talk to me and say that she was very concerned about him because he was so emotional in front of others. Now, he has Mars in Libra, not necessarily emotional. It's in the mental realm, the air realm, but he's got a Cancer sun. He's burning Cancer fuel. And so he would get upset and he would cry when he was hurt or he didn't know what to do with his feelings, and he was getting bullied for that. So I'm like, oh, great. Now what do I do? Because I didn't want to tell him he couldn't have his feelings.
No.
Because that's what we've done to men, and that's wrong. We've told men they have to be tough and they just have to pull them up by their bootstraps and just move on and not ever let their emotions show unless they're angry, and that's okay. So what I told him was, I said, so your feelings are valid and important, and you might need to wait until you get home to feel them.
Aww.
And yeah, and I said, where it's safe. And
so
then if you,
sad.
I know, if you need to cry, you need to, rage, or you need to whatever, you're in a safe space for that. And so he started practicing doing that. I mean, I think it helped him to feel like he could have his feelings, but he still had to practice not, being emotional in front of other boys, especially. So now he teaches high school and the sciences. Like, I think mostly he's focused on chemistry and physics now, but he's taught them all, and he's taught math and that kind of thing. And he finds creative ways to discourage bullying because he was at the effect of it. He knows how it feels. And then he also recognizes that he tends to detach from his feelings, especially in social situations. And yet he feels so deeply that he cried at his wedding. It was just like, oh, so he hasn't lost it entirely, but he will, does try to figure out how to detach. And Gemini's pretty good at that. Libra can be pretty good at that too. But it might not be the healthiest use of that all the time. So just one example. And then, how did I do that? Go back to my share. Let's see. I have twins, boy and a girl, and they have Venus and Mars in Aries. So they've got maximum yang energy, and they're a boy and a girl. And they express it differently. They also have Pisces sun, maximum yin energy. And so he's an introvert, but he's also a performer. He's a stuntman, he's an actor, he's a musician. He traveled all around the world doing all of this. And he's always looking out for others. It's like he's that protector, Aries protector. It's not distorted in any way. He just really cares about people. And he's very thoughtful. Like if we're out hiking, somebody falls behind, he'll walk with them just to make sure they're safe. That's just so good. Now, his twin sister is an extrovert. So it's interesting how they're different in that way. And she also loves to perform. And currently the way that she's doing that is as a fitness instructor. And so on her birthday, she told all her friends, this was back in March, she told all her friends they had to come to her fitness class to help her celebrate.
Wow.
To perform for them.
Wow.
And they did, because they love her, because she's so fun. She's very outgoing, very charismatic. That's something else about the fire signs that can be very charismatic. And she is fierce. She always protects her brothers, but she also would protect the kids at school that had a disability and they were getting teased or bullied. And she would say, you want to take that outside? Yeah. and she said, thank God no one ever took her up on it, but that would stop the bullying. They just would be, she was so fierce. They were like, yeah, no, I don't want to take that outside with you. Anyway, so another way that maximum yin and yang can work together, or, might express, and just some, brief examples here. My youngest son is Mars in Pisces, so he's maximum yin. He's Venus in Aries, so he's maximum yang, and his sun is in Gemini, which is minimum yang, right? It's like it's a yang expression, but anyway, his kindness kept him from being bullied in school. Because he wasn't reactive, he just stayed really even, and he was so kind. All his teachers wanted to clone him. We're like, we wish that all our students were as kind and considerate as he is. I was like, oh my boy. And so when he was in 7th grade, he came home and he said to me, Mom, I just realized there's never any reason to be mean to anyone, even if you don't like them.
What?
I know. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so he's always been this really thoughtful, kind, caring, compassionate Mars in Pisces. And he was not into athletics. He was not into, like being tough and, competitive or any of that. Never was into that. And now he's in a relationship with a transgender man. So, it's like that Gemini piece where it's like, I'm not going to follow the rules like everybody else. I'm going to find my own way and what really works for me. And anyway, he's awesome. So they're all awesome in their own way, but this is just to kind of give you a brief example of how this might manifest for people, like so you can just kind of get a sense of that in terms of the masculine feminine expression. And the sun definitely influences how we express those archetypes. So anything about any of that?
No, I'm just loving it.
Okay, good. So now Venus and Mars have what we call a synodic cycle, meaning every so many years they return with the sun where they were at the moment of birth or any given moment. And these cycles are very significant for lots of reasons, but Venus will return every year, Mars will return every 2 years. And every 8 years, Venus predictably returns with the sun near the birthday or near a certain point, like, a new Venus cycle starting when Venus rises in the morning sky or that kind of thing. Mars is far more unpredictable. So it's interesting that our culture has seen Venus, our women, as unpredictable, and you can't, they're just all over the place. They're so emotional, and men as predictable. And I think that has to be more with our cultural conditioning, because if we look at the cycles, that is not how it works. So every 8 years, Venus is coming back predictably, Mars every 15 to 17 years. And sometimes it's closer at 15, every 15th year, or sometimes it's closer at the 17th year. And of course, the Venus cycle is 19 months long and the Mars cycle is 2 years long, so they often overlap. But Mars and Venus return together every 32 years. So age 32, 64, and 96, they come together, which are a powerful time to really see how they work together, to really, do that deeper inner work on the how they're working together rather than maybe in opposition to each other, or finding a way for them to communicate in ways that are healthy and supportive. And then there's times that overlap. So Mars at age 15, Venus at age 16, Mars at age 47, Venus at age 48, Mars at age 79, Venus at age 80 are some times when they overlap those. So it's like you be having them, but the closest return is on the birthday, maybe a year apart from, Mars has it and then Venus comes. Now I am a person who has both. I'm late in the Venus cycle, I'm late in the Mars cycle. So their overlap is just slight when they're happening, but sometimes they overlap quite a lot. But these are all really powerful times to engage the sacred marriage of our feminine and masculine intended expression, to really, like as you were describing, Martha, that you did that deep work. You said a couple of years ago, if I'm remembering correctly.
A year ago, I was 44 at that point. Yeah, I'm 45 now, but I'm coming up to one of these times you're talking about. Yeah.
So another layer, perhaps.
Yeah. And as we're recording this, I'm just noticing, you and I are both having our annual Venus
return.
Yes.
In fact, the Venus moon gate, of course, my birthday is in March and so is yours, but Venus is coming back in May. So it's not anywhere close to our birthday. So the annual, as you said, the annual Venus return, and it happens to be at the solar plexus chakra gate of the Venus cycle, where she's learning to stand in her personal power. How perfect it's in Aries. Anyway, so that's what I got. Any questions, anything else, or are we complete?
No, nothing that's arising right this second. It's just a lot to sit with, and I think it's really beautiful. I think that for me, the next step, kind of beyond what you said, is the thing that you said we won't talk about. But Jamie Goldstein and I talked about it a little bit in her talk, which is that whole process of dropping into your own feminine and your own masculine, your own Venus, your own Aries, and going inside and really doing that deep inner
marriage work, which,
Mhm.
you know, I wouldn't say it's like right for everyone in the world to do it, but for
Yeah.
me, it's been unbelievably life-changing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can just suggest a practice that's fairly easy to do if people want to, if they know their Venus and their Mars. And I have Venus in Aries and Mars in Capricorn. And so I often think Mars in Capricorn is like, oh, Venus in Aries, you're just like all over the place and I can't count on you. And you're just like a kid who just wants to go climb the mountain. And we really need to be doing the work back at home.
Hilarious. Yeah.
Like that's been the conversation sometimes I've had with my Venus and my Mars. But so, you know, depending on which one you feel like you're leading with, or how you want them to talk together, or, you know, to have a better conversation, you can journal around that.
Yeah.
And then ask your inner Mars, if you're a woman, you know, what do I need to know? Or how can I be more connected with you?
Yeah.
And then if you're a man, you might ask your inner feminine. And if you're a different gender identity or whatever, you can do whichever one is alive or feels like it's on the front lines for you. Like right now, I've got a Pluto cycle to my Venus. I'm working more with my Venus than I am with my Mars. So it can also depend on cycles you're in and phase of life and all of that, what's going on.
Yeah.
So asking the questions and maybe even writing the love letter to that part of yourself, like how much you appreciate these qualities that are that expression of the feminine or masculine. And then take your non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed, so I do it left-handed, and answer from that part of yourself.
Beautiful.
It's powerful. So yeah, I highly recommend doing that. It's like and the answers can blow you away.
No, right. I did a lot of that kind of journaling last summer when I was doing this work, and I couldn't believe what came out. You know, what I would do is I would sit and ask my feminine and my masculine similar questions, like, what is alive for you? What are you needing? What are you wanting? What are you feeling? You know, just basic questions like that. And I would shift kind of almost physically, like over to one side for one of them and the other side to the other one, just to help me get into their, embody them.
Beautiful.
And I couldn't believe it sometimes, the things that would come out. It's like, wow, I am feeling this and this at the same time, and that's okay. And I can contain all of it. And then I would help them dialogue, right?
Yes.
And then,
yes.
Oh, wow, so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just one practice. I know there's many more, and I'm sure other people have practices that they can offer, but just something, I think it's a good place to start. If you're not really sure where to start, you can start with that.
Yeah. Beautiful. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of you, what do you offer in the world? It's all listed here with the video, but
yeah,
what do you want to share about what you offer and how people can find you and that kind of thing?
So mostly one of my favorite things I'm doing right now, well, two favorite things I'm doing right now. One is Venus Alchemy, the alchemy of Venus, and exploring the Venus cycle as ceremony, and working through the chakra gates as she descends, then dies, and then reascends back up through those gates. And this is something that I've been doing since the mid-90s personally, and also with clients. And then in 2014, we started leading people through this, and it inspired people so much. They, you know, we just thought we were going to do it once. And they said, you're going to keep doing this, right? And so we've been doing it for 8 years now. So we've come back to the starting point, which is really fun. And this particular Venus cycle that we're in right now is so mind-blowing. It is just off the charts mind-blowing. And I thought they were all mind-blowing, but this one's just like taking it to a whole other level because of all the things that have been happening within the cycle. And that'll last until August of 2023. So when a new cycle starts, and then we'll start a new journey. So if people are interested in that, venusalchemy.com. And then my Star Alchemy. And we're looking at the Bohemian, we did a class on the Bohemian stars, the magical stars. And one of the things we look at in the Venus cycle is what stars are Venus with when she's going through each of the gates, and how is that adding an extra understanding to what's going on with each gate, because the stars are also transmitting their mysteries and energy when planets are close to them. So we do that. So the My Star Alchemy, first class we did last year was on the magical Bohemian stars. There's 15 stars of the ancient alchemists. And they worked with those stars when planets were close to them to create their talismans, elixirs, potions, intentions, magical ceremonial, whatever things they were doing. So we looked at all of that. And then this year, we're going to start a new class in September that is on the zodiacal constellations and their stories and their myths and how we've understood them in the past. They're, historically things that have happened with that. And then what's the new stories perhaps that are coming through and the major stars within those constellations. So that's really fun.
That is all so intriguing. I would like to clone myself so I could do all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, those are the main things I'm doing right now.
Great. And then you have the free gift that you mentioned that people can.
Yes. And so there an elements meditation that will give you the embodied experience of the elements, then also take you through the signs and how they express the astrological signs and how they express through the elements. It's about 19 minutes, I think, 19 minutes. I forget exactly how long. And then there's also a Venus journey that takes you through the whole entire cycle of Venus as an embodied experience in about 27 minutes.
What?
Yeah. So that's on the free offer page. And plus the slides that we just looked at will also be there. So people want to go back and look at them, they can do that.
So wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being part of this symposium, and
I'm honored. Thank you.
thank you for existing.
Well, thank you for thanking me. And thank you for existing.
Oh, yeah.
And thank everybody who's here, because we all exist and we are here to change this world by how we're vibrating and understanding and expanding our awareness and our consciousness to come from the higher vibrational energies of love.
Yeah,
that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
And so when we can have deeper understanding and get out of our judgment and out of our not feeling good enough or whatever things we have going on for us and just come from that place of love, we're changing the world in dramatic ways.
Literally, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.